finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
Welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by Smiling Tiger. He's standing at Harris Farms in California. He's got a serious Breeders' Cup contender. We'll talk about that coming up. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. We're going to start, Ray, with, the Breeders' Cup is a week away. It's at Santa Anita again, the 10th time. This is the 36th running. It hasn't been outside the state of California or Kentucky since 2007, when it was at Monmouth Park. The next 2 years, Keeneland, Del Mar, same old story, California, Kentucky. Do you think, since we haven't really visited this subject in a while, what are the chances that it's going to land somewhere else in the near future?
Well, as much as I like Santa Anita and Del Mar and Keeneland, and we all know that Churchill is a great site to host big events, I really enjoyed the Breeders' Cup more when it moved around a little bit. But the problem is Belmont hasn't hosted since, I think, 2005. They've got a big construction project going on there now for the New York Islanders hockey arena. We haven't really seen what they're going to do to the Belmont grandstand, but I have to think that there's going to be major changes there. New York deserves a Breeders' Cup, and it needs to get back there, but we have to wait and let all this play out first. Laurel has thrown their hat in the ring for a Breeders' Cup, but the good news out of Maryland is that the Stronach Group and the city of Baltimore reached a deal to keep the Preakness at Pimlico. They're going to, pending support from the government, they're going to rebuild Pimlico, and they're going to completely rebuild Laurel. So I think that's out of the picture for a few years, even though they were talking about maybe hosting it as early as 2021 or 2022. I guess it's back to Keeneland next year, and then Del Mar the year after. So 2022 is the first year it's open.
I think about Arlington Park when it hosted the Breeders' Cup. Of course, the troubles there are obvious. We've talked about that several times, so we have no idea what the future is there. Gulfstream Park, who knows? I haven't heard much in that vein in the last couple of years. But one place that it was a few years ago that was intriguing, and I know there's some discussion about perhaps hosting it in the future, is Woodbine in Toronto. You've been talking with Jim Lawson, the CEO of Woodbine Entertainment, about this. Yeah,
their hosting of the Breeders' Cup in 1996 was a great day. We all worried about the weather. The weather came through. It was as warm I don't know if it was late October, early November, but it was close to 70 degrees, perfect weather. This is when it was a one-day event. This was before Woodbine became a casino as well as a racetrack. There's a lot going on right now at Woodbine. There's a construction of an amphitheater, a couple of hotels and restaurants. They're really building out that massive property. But they would be ready to host a Breeders' Cup as early as 2022. But there's one thing that Jim Lawson said used to be a disqualifier, at least in recent years, and that's the fact that their main track is a synthetic surface. And he said we live in a different world now because of the emphasis on safety.
I think he's right on the money with that. And we're seeing in California, all the pressure that's been mounting. And then, we've had some fatalities elsewhere on dirt. The statistics don't lie. They do say that the numbers are pretty clear that when it comes to catastrophic injuries, dirt is not as safe as synthetic tracks. The thing I love about synthetics is that you can constantly mold them, fix them, change them. Michael Dickinson with Tapeta, he's always working on the formula. And Tapeta has, proven around the world it's one of the safest surfaces. And that's what Woodbine installed with its most recent renovation. We've seen the success at Golden Gate Fields where, you just look at the equine fatality rate. It's definitely lower than a lot of places. And I know that there's been a lot of pushback from breeders, trainers, when it comes to hind end injuries and things like that. And with breeders, they want dirt horses. I get it. But, do you want a sport or not?
Yeah, it comes down to, do you want dirt racing or do you want horse racing? I think that the pressure, from the outside, from the public, and certainly I think the media is reflecting that public, is they want safe racing. And As you said, the numbers are the numbers. They show that synthetics are safer, and synthetics today are better surfaces than synthetics that were first put in at Santa Anita, Hollywood, Del Mar, Turfway Park, Arlington, and Keeneland. They've been working at it. We both think Tapeta is a really good surface. I hope someone else comes up with a good surface, because I don't think it's a good idea for there to be a monopoly. One company dominates. Although on behalf of Tapeta, I will say, and disclosure, they advertised with us a few weeks ago, and I saw these numbers. I think they're up to something like 7,000 starts on the the Tapeta tracks in England without a fatality. That's a pretty remarkable safety record.
I think that one of the obstacles for future of synthetics is the Kentucky Derby, quite frankly, and the Triple Crown, because all those races are run on dirt. Owners today, they want to win the Kentucky Derby. That's what breeders want to produce. They want to produce contenders for the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown. And unfortunately, as we said, the numbers say different in terms of the safety. And right now, safety is paramount. That's the issue that is facing horse racing and its future. So I'm not saying that the Kentucky Derby is going to become a synthetic race anytime in the near future. We don't really expect that to happen. But I do think that it's there has to be a recalibration of our thinking about what the future of the sport looks like.
Yeah.
And if synthetic tracks are safer, put in synthetic tracks, period.
Yeah, I agree. Back to Woodbine, it's a different facility than it was when the Breeders' Cup was last there. In a lot of ways, it's a nicer facility. It's more modern. Toronto is a world-class city. It's a great host of a big event. You and I have been up there for the Queen's Plate. It's close to the airport. It's easy to get to for international travelers, for horses. They've got 5 different surfaces, the 2 turf courses, the main synthetic track, a dirt training track. It's a great place to host a Breeders' Cup, but we all know that it comes down to one issue.
And that is the question of synthetics. So we have a poll question about this. Should synthetics be a disqualifier for hosting a Breeders' Cup? Let us know your thoughts at PaulickReport.com. Personally, I don't think so. Certainly, as I just expressed, if that's maybe the future does have to go that way if we want to have a sport. The weather thing doesn't really bother me because Churchill Downs, heck, when Zenyatta and Blame in the Breeders' Cup Classic, it was like 45 degrees by the time that race went off. Not really an issue. And I love, as for Woodbine, I love the fact that a lot of Europeans would come over because they love that turf course, which is more similar to what they have over in Europe. Ray, Smiling Tiger has Spiced Perfection, a serious contender in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. I think she might be overlooked a little bit, but her history suggests this race is right up her alley.
Yeah, we talked a couple of weeks ago about her win in the Thoroughbred Club of America Stakes at Keeneland, where she just got absolutely left at the start, and then she burst through a narrow opening to win at the 6 furlong distance. But if you go back to last December and the La Brea Stakes at Santa Anita at 7 furlongs, Spice Perfection turned in a really strong performance there to win, and I think she's more than a sleeper in the Filly and Mare Sprint here.
You got 1 week to book your mare to Smiling Tiger. The offer is $6,000 as a fee, and then it goes up to $7,500. You got to book before November 3rd, which is the day after the Breeders' Cup, and that deal is on the table right now. You can find out more at smilingtigerstallion.com. That's going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. We'll talk to you next week from Santa Anita.